I seem to hear with what burning he had made it his, and with what burning we had yet to make it ours, how we could cease lamenting. Freedom lurked around us, and I understood at last that he could help us to be free if we would listen. That we would never be free until we did. That there was no battle in his face now. I heard what he had gone through and would continue to go through until he came to rest in the earth. He had made it his, that long line of which we knew only Mama and Daddy. And he was giving it back, as everything must be given back, so that passing through death, it can live forever. I saw my mother's face again, and I felt, for the first time, how the stones of the road she had walked on must have bruised her feet. I saw the moonlit road where my father's brother died, and it brought something else back to me and carried me past it. I saw my little girl again, and I felt Isabel's tears again, and I felt my own tears begin to rise, and I was yet aware that this was only a moment, that the world waited outside, as hungry as a tiger, and that trouble stretched before us, longer than the sky. And then it was over. So, what does it mean to tell the past? What does it mean to tell a history? Well, for the narrator of Sonny's Blues, it is liberatory. It is triumphant. Sonny isn't just playing music. He is playing the road his mother walked on barefoot. He is playing his uncle's murder on a moonlit road in the South. He is playing his own daughter's death from polio. The narrator hears this, and for him, for the first time, history has become a living, breathing thing. The past has become a living, breathing thing. Something he can understand, something he can work through, something that has meaning. Not something to be repressed, as he's been repressing it his whole life. Not something to be avoided, as he's been avoiding it his whole life. But that's a very particular past. Although Baldwin would tell us it's all of our past, and I think it is. It's a very particular past. Let me give you a different example of why history means something to me. I'm now going to read to you from Primo Levi's Survival in Auschwitz. And I'll set up this scene for you as well. Primo is walking around, he's working in the camp. And Primo Levi's notion of Auschwitz is that this is a place of extraordinary madness. His description of concentration camps borders on the funny, because he sees the camps as being places that are nothing short of insane, and that those who design them are madmen. That concentration camps are asylums in which the inmates are running the show. And he is looking for ways, periodically, not only to stay alive, but to stay sane in all this madness. He comments constantly what an insane place Auschwitz is. From the moment you enter and you see the lie, Arbeit macht frei, work will make you free, only to discover that the harder you work, the more likely you are to die. Work does not make you free in a camp. It does not reward you in a camp. It kills you. He and some of his friends, if one can have friends in a concentration camp, are trying to avoid work. and the people shows up. This is a young man who works for the capo. The capo is the brutal man who runs each of the barracks. And Primo Levi has a particularly sadistic capo. But the young man who runs the capo's errands, the people, is a young man named Jean. And he's a sweet kid, and Primo likes him. And Jean shows up and needs one of the men who are avoiding work as best they can, trying to save what little bit of strength they have in an environment that does not give people enough food to live. He needs one of them to help him get the vat of soup that they're going to be eating. And it's about a 2-mile walk to get the vat of soup, and then they've got to carry the soup, which weighs over 100 pounds, back these 2 miles. And Primo Levi talks about this, evoking, and I think very consciously evoking, Albert Camus' myth of Sisyphus. The notion, and actually inverting it. Sisyphus, Camus tells us, is a man who must push a heavy stone up a mountain, only to see it go down the other side, and then he must go down the mountain, push the stone back up, only to see it go down the other side. And Camus says, well, our lives are like that. Our lives are like that. That's what we do. We live a Sisyphusian life. We push stones up a mountain only to see them go back down. But it's that moment of grace, when we walk down the mountain, when we can think, when we can ponder what the human condition is about. It's that philosophic moment, that as we're going down the mountain, that we can consider what it means to be human. Survival at Auschwitz is not called Survival at Auschwitz. That's the translation they give it. The actual title of it is What is a Man? And it opens with the call to history. A poem, a chilling poem that Primo Levi offers us. And let me quickly read it to you. You who live safe in your warm houses, you who find returning in the evening hot food and friendly faces, consider if this is a man who works in the mud, who does not know peace, who fights for a scrap of bread, who dies because of a yes or a no. Consider if this is a woman without hair, without a name, with no more strength to remember, her eyes empty and her womb cold like a frog in winter. Meditate that this came about. I commend these words to you. Carve them in your hearts. At home, in the street, going to bed, rising. Repeat them to your children. Or may your house fall apart. May illness impede you. May your children turn their faces from you. To Primo Levi, history is important. If you don't know history, you face this curse. You suffer this curse. You deserve this curse. Primo is walking with Jean to get the vat of soup. And he finds himself trying to remember a medieval poem. He finds himself trying to remember, of all things, Dante's Inferno. And a particular canto, a section of Dante's Inferno, the canto of Ulysses. He not only needs to remember it, he needs to teach it to Jean, just as Sonny's piano playing teaches us something about triumph and liberation. He needs to teach it. So he needs to remember it, which he's having a hard time doing. Primo Levi, this chemist, cast into this role in this concentration camp, needs to remember it. And then he needs to translate it into French, because Jean